It all started with a bold statement that nobody expected. Ozzy Osbourne, the legendary rock star known for his wild antics and fearless personality, posted a video online one morning that immediately went viral. In it, he looked straight at the camera, a mischievous grin on his face, and declared, "I'm challenging Chuck Norris to a fight, and this time, I won't go easy." Fans immediately reacted with shock, laughter, and disbelief. Social media exploded. Comments ranged from "Ozzy, are you serious?" to "Chuck doesn't even know what's coming." Some laughed it off as a joke, while others wondered if there was some hidden method behind Ozzy's madness. The rock star, however, didn't explain himself. He simply posted a short clip of him shadowboxing in his backyard, wearing sunglasses and a leather jacket, with the caption, "Let's see if the legend can handle this." Meanwhile, Chuck Norris, known around the world as a martial arts master and action movie icon, stayed silent. For decades, Chuck had been the embodiment of calm and precision, a man whose mere presence was intimidating. The world knew better than to underestimate him, and this time would be no different. But Ozzy, he thrived on the thrill, the unpredictability, and the sheer audacity of the moment. He didn't care about skill or strategy. He believed that charm, energy, and a fearless attitude could overcome anything. People everywhere began speculating. Could a rock star really stand a chance against a martial arts legend? Could the unpredictability of Ozzy's wild personality somehow throw Chuck off his legendary composure? And that's where the tension came in. Because one thing was certain, nobody knew what would happen next. Every fan, every follower, every casual observer was glued to their screens, wondering, would Ozzy's courage be enough, or was he about to learn a lesson the hard way? The stakes were clear. Ozzy was about to step into the ring, figuratively, or maybe literally, and challenge a man whose calm precision had earned him decades of respect. What happened next shocked everyone, and it would prove that some battles are lost before they even begin. Who would you bet on, Ozzy or Chuck? Type Ozzy or Chuck in the comments right now. After Ozzy's viral challenge, the world couldn't stop talking. Social media exploded with memes, debates, and fan theories. Some laughed at the idea of a rock star facing a martial arts legend. Others speculated that maybe, just maybe, Ozzy's unpredictable energy could actually surprise Chuck Norris. In the days that followed, the tension built like a storm on the horizon. Every news outlet ran stories. Ozzy challenges Chuck Norris, can Rock survive the roundhouse? Talk shows invited experts to debate who would win. Martial artists analyzed Chuck's technique, while music fans argued that Ozzy's wild unpredictability was an advantage. Meanwhile, Ozzy didn't slow down. He posted more clips, each more outrageous than the last. One showed him sprinting across his backyard, flailing dramatically like a tornado of energy. Another had him practicing ninja kicks with a broomstick. He even teased, "I may be old, but I've still got moves you've never seen." Chuck Norris, on the other hand, remained silent, calm, unshakable. And that was what made the setup so perfect. While Ozzy was loud, chaotic, and full of bravado, Chuck exuded the kind of quiet confidence that comes from decades of mastery. Every eye in the world was on them, waiting to see what would happen when two very different types of power collided. Fans started speculating about the rules. Would it be a staged showdown, a playful sparring match, or an actual test of skill? The more people wondered, the bigger the hype became. Even celebrities began joining the conversation. Some posted memes, others tweeted warnings to Ozzy, joking that Chuck's legendary moves were not to be underestimated. Backstage in Ozzy's world, he trained in his own chaotic style. Not technique, not precision, just sheer energy. He thrived on unpredictability, on daring the impossible. Every punch, every movement, every exaggerated pose was a message. I'm not afraid, I'm coming at you with everything I've got. Chuck, meanwhile, didn't need to train for this. Years of discipline, countless fights, and an aura of calm ensured that he was already prepared, mentally and physically. Chuck's power wasn't in flash or showmanship. It was in control, precision, and knowing exactly what to do in every situation. The world waited with bated breath. Could Ozzy's wild confidence be enough to surprise the master? Or was this a battle that was already decided, even before the first move? If you had to pick a winner at this point, Who would it be? Type Ozzy if you believe in the chaos, or Chuck if you trust the legend's skill, and tell us which city or country you're watching this from. We want to see how far this story reaches. The stage was set. The challenge was clear, and while Ozzy was preparing to throw everything he had at the fight, Chuck Norris's calm presence already cast a shadow over the entire scene. No one knew the outcome yet, but one thing was certain. This story would shock everyone who thought they knew how it would end. The day of the showdown finally arrived. The arena, a mix of a stage, training mats, and a small crowd of fans and media, buzzed with excitement. Cameras flashed, smartphones recorded every angle, and murmurs of disbelief floated through the air. Everyone wanted to witness this unlikely clash, Ozzy Osbourne versus Chuck Norris. Ozzy arrived first, dressed in his signature rockstar-style sunglasses, leather jacket, and boots that had seen decades of stage antics. He strutted across the floor like he owned the place. He raised his fists theatrically, giving a wink to the crowd. His confidence was almost blinding. He was loud, chaotic, unpredictable, the very definition of energy incarnate. "Let's see if the legend can handle this," he shouted, flexing dramatically. The crowd laughed, cheered, and some even held up signs. "Go, Ozzy!" Then Chuck Norris walked in, calm, silent, every step measured, every gaze steady. Unlike Ozzy, he didn't need to announce his presence. The arena seemed to recognize him. A hush fell over the crowd. You could feel the difference instantly. Where Ozzy radiated raw chaos, Chuck radiated control and experience. The contrast couldn't have been more extreme. On one side, a whirlwind of energy. On the other, a mountain of unshakable discipline. The crowd leaned forward in anticipation, sensing the tension that words couldn't describe. Ozzy, of course, couldn't resist testing the waters. He flailed an exaggerated kick in Chuck's direction, more for show than technique. He laughed, thinking he was setting the tone. Chuck didn't flinch, he didn't even smile. He simply shifted slightly, observing, analyzing. Every micro-movement told the audience something terrifyingly simple. Chuck Norris didn't need to try. He already had the upper hand. Cameras zoomed in on the audience. Reactions ranged from wide-eyed disbelief to laughter. A man in the front row whispered to his friend, "Ozzy really thinks he can win." Huh. His friend just shook his head, eyes fixed on Chuck. The energy in the arena became almost electric. People held their breath. Some were cheering for Ozzy's audacity, others for Chuck's undeniable presence. Everyone knew something monumental was about to happen, but no one could predict how it would unfold. Ozzy tried another dramatic display, spinning, lunging, and shouting. The crowd roared with amusement, but Chuck remained a picture of calm precision. A single step, a slight shift in stance, and the room instinctively recognized who really had control. Murmurs spread. "This is already over, isn't it?" Before he even moves, you can tell who's in charge. Ozzy's energy is amazing. But Chuck is something else. The tension reached its peak. The first official move was about to be made, or so everyone thought. Phones recorded every second. Social media exploded with live updates, each comment more intense than the last. If you were watching this live, what would you do? Would you cheer for Ozzy's chaos or stay silent in awe of Chuck's calm mastery type? Chaos for Ozzy, legend for Chuck. And tell us your city or country in the comments. Ozzy looked at Chuck grinning and said, "Ready to lose." Chuck's calm stare was all the answer he needed to give. The crowd realized something crucial at that moment. This wasn't just a fight of strength or skill, it was a battle of control versus chaos. And while Ozzy had already put everything on the line, Chuck's quiet mastery made it clear that the outcome might be decided before the first strike was even thrown. The anticipation was unbearable. Every fan leaned forward. Every phone camera stayed steady. The arena was silent, waiting for the moment that would prove whether energy alone could ever match precision, experience, and absolute control. And that moment was about to arrive. The crowd held its collective breath. Every eye was fixed on the two men standing in the arena. The tension was almost tangible, like electricity crackling in the air. Ozzy Osbourne stepped forward, exaggerated confidence radiating from him. His fists were up, his stance wide, and he bounced on his toes. The rock star was all energy, all chaos, all unpredictability. He shouted, "Let's see what you got, Chuck," and launched himself into a flurry of dramatic swings and kicks. The crowd gasped and cheered. Some laughed at his wild style. Some held their heads in disbelief. Every move Ozzy made was theatrical, over top, almost like a rock concert in motion rather than a fight. But Chuck Norris stood perfectly still, calm, focused. Each of Ozzy's chaotic movements seemed to bounce harmlessly off an invisible wall. Chuck's eyes were sharp, analyzing every twitch, every shift, every feint. The audience could almost feel the lesson being taught. True skill doesn't need theatrics. Ozzy paused for a moment, grinning. He thought his first assault had rattled Chuck, but the martial artist hadn't even flinched. In fact, the calm stare from Chuck seemed to slow down time itself. Every person watching felt it, a quiet, chilling sense that Ozzy was already at a disadvantage. Desperate to gain momentum, Ozzy threw a high spin kick, hoping to catch Chuck off guard. The crowd gasped in anticipation. This was it. The moment of action. Chuck didn't move. Not a single step, not a single guard raise. He simply shifted his weight slightly, and in that subtle adjustment, Ozzy's kick went wide. His balance faltered for just a fraction of a second, enough to send him slightly off. Center. The audience erupted, half in awe, half in laughter. Some whispered, "He's already lost," before he even touched Chuck. Ozzy quickly recovered, laughing nervously, trying to keep his energy high. He shouted, "I'm just warming up," and launched into a few more wild swings, more like air punches than attacks. Every attempt showcased Ozzy's energy, his fearlessness, and his unrelenting spirit. But none of it was landing. Chuck's calm presence only grew stronger. He didn't mock, didn't taunt. He didn't need to. Every subtle shift, every measured breath, spoke volumes. The audience could see it. Control and experience will always overshadow chaos, no matter how loud or wild murmurs spread through the arena. Ozzy's giving it everything he has, but Chuck isn't even breaking a sweat. This is insane. Ozzy is all fire. Chuck is all ice. A fan in the front row whispered to his friend, "He's crazy brave. But you know the truth. Chuck's already won in his mind." Ozzy, sensing the crowd's shift, tried one last dramatic move, a spinning backflip punch combined with a loud yell. Phones recorded every second. The audience leaned in, holding their breath. Chuck Norris remained still, silent, commanding respect without moving a muscle. In that moment, the realization hit the entire crowd simultaneously. This battle was lost before the first real strike was even thrown. And yet, despite the clear imbalance, Ozzy continued. He didn't give up. He refused to let fear control him. That was his strength, his energy, his audacity, his refusal to back down, even in the face of inevitable defeat. If you were watching this, would you cheer for Ozzy's courage, or be in awe of Chuck's calm mastery? Type courage for Ozzy, legend for Chuck, and tell us your city or country. The first move was over. The lesson was clear. Sometimes the battle is already decided before it even begins, and the world was watching, captivated, waiting for the next moment that would make this story go viral. Phones recorded every detail, capturing the drama for the thousands of viewers online who were watching the live stream. The tension was almost unbearable. Everyone knew something monumental had just happened, even if they couldn't put it into words yet. Ozzy Osbourne stood in the center, chest heaving, wild hair sticking out in every direction. Sweat glistened on his forehead. His eyes burned with determination. He had given everything, all his energy, all his showmanship, all his fearlessness, in a desperate attempt to impress, intimidate, or maybe even surprise Chuck Norris. But Chuck remained, calm, silent. Collected, every slight movement of his body communicated something far more powerful than any shout, swing, or dramatic leap: control, precision, and mastery. Ozzy took a step back, panting, and raised his fists for one last theatrical attempt. The crowd leaned forward, anticipating some kind of comeback. "All right, let's really do this," Ozzy shouted. He lunged forward, spinning wildly, attempting a combination of a punch and a kick, the kind of chaotic motion that might work in a cartoon but not in real combat. And that's when it happened. The audience gasped. Some laughed nervously. Others stared in awe. It wasn't just the physicality of the moment. It was the clarity of the lesson. Ozzy's energy, no matter how great, couldn't overcome Chuck's mastery. Ozzy looked up, surprised. For a brief moment, the reality of the situation hit him. All his effort, all his chaos, all his wild moves. They hadn't been enough. Not because he wasn't brave, not because he wasn't entertaining, but because he was facing a force that didn't need to move to dominate. Chuck finally spoke, calmly, almost softly, but with a tone that carried the weight of experience. "Sometimes," he said, "you fight with your energy. Sometimes you win with your control. You were brave, Ozzy, but bravery alone can't win this fight." The crowd was stunned. A hush fell over the arena. Phones kept rolling, capturing every word. Ozzy, ever the performer, laughed nervously and raised his hands in mock surrender. "Well, that was unexpected," he said, grinning through the embarrassment. "Guess I learned something today." Chuck's calm presence didn't waver. He stepped forward, nodded slightly to Ozzy and added, "And that's the real lesson. Respect the power of mastery." The realization rippled through the audience like a shockwave. Memes and comments had already begun circulating online, capturing the moment. Ozzy fought the legend and lost before he even threw a proper punch. Chuck Norris doesn't just fight, he teaches lessons. Even journalists covering the event admitted it was surreal. Ozzy's courage, his showmanship, and his unpredictable energy had made the fight entertaining, almost cartoonish. But the outcome had always been inevitable. The reveal wasn't just about who was stronger. It was about the difference between raw energy and controlled skill. Fans cheered, applauded, and laughed at the spectacle. Ozzy, always a good sport, took a bow. He had given the world a story to remember. A moment that would be replayed, shared, and debated for years to come. Chuck, the silent master, simply nodded and exited the arena with the quiet dignity that had earned him legendary status. "Did you see that coming? Who impressed you more? Ozzy for his courage, or Chuck for his mastery-type courage or legend in the comments, and tell us where you're watching from." The reveal had gone viral before the arena even emptied. Clips of Ozzy stumbling slightly, Chuck standing calm, and the crowd's reactions spread across social media like wildfire. Memes, reaction videos, and commentary flooded the internet. People around the world were sharing the story, laughing at Ozzy's antics, and marveling at Chuck's presence. Yet beyond the humor, there was a deeper lesson embedded in the moment. It wasn't about mocking Ozzy. It was about understanding the value of experience, calmness, and strategic control. Bravery and energy could carry you far, but sometimes, the fight is already decided the moment you step into the arena. Ozzy himself later reflected on the experience in a short interview clip. "You know, I thought my energy would be enough. Turns out, Chuck's calm is unbeatable. But hey, I had fun, and I hope everyone enjoyed the show." Chuck didn't need to comment. The lesson had already been delivered. The crowd had witnessed something rare, the moment when the outcome is visible before the fight even truly begins. And that was the reveal. Ozzy's energy and courage were incredible. But mastery, control, and decades of experience meant that Chuck Norris had already won. Not through brute force, but simply by being himself. The world would remember this moment for years, and while Ozzy's antics were unforgettable, the lesson, calm mastery always outshines chaos, was the true viral sensation. The arena was slowly emptying, but the energy from the showdown lingered like a charged storm. Phones were still recording, social media feeds were exploding, and fans couldn't stop talking about what they had just witnessed. Ozzy Osbourne walked off the stage, laughing and shaking his head. He waved to the crowd, a mix of humility and his signature flamboyance in every gesture. Despite losing before the fight had truly begun, he remained a crowd favorite, not for winning, but for daring to face a legend with everything he had. Chuck Norris followed behind, calm and unshaken, the quiet presence that had dominated the room without raising his voice. Every fan, every journalist, every bystander knew the truth. The outcome wasn't about energy or spectacle. It was about experience, control, and the subtle power of mastery. The clips from the arena were already going viral online. Fans replayed every move, every exaggerated swing, every subtle shift in Chuck's stance. Memes were created in real time. Ozzy versus Chuck, lost before the first punch. Chuck Norris didn't even break a sweat. Courage versus mastery, guess who wins? But beyond the humor, the story carried a lesson that resonated worldwide. Everyone could see the truth. Raw energy, courage, and unpredictability are powerful, but they can never fully overcome experience, discipline, and focus. Even in a fight as dramatic and entertaining as this, the subtle strength of control always shines. Fans continued to debate online. Some praised Ozzy's bravery, calling it inspiring. Others marveled at Chuck's calm mastery, admitting that his presence alone could determine the outcome. Every comment, every post, every reaction added to the story's momentum, propelling it to the top of trending feeds worldwide. Have you ever tried something bold and realized experience or skill made all the difference? Share your story in the comments. The best ones might get featured in our next video. Meanwhile, the media began analyzing the showdown from multiple angles. Headlines read, Ozzy versus Chuck, the fight that was lost before it began. Chaos meets mastery. Lessons from an unlikely battle energy isn't enough. Why control wins every time. Even celebrities joined the conversation online, sharing clips, memes, and witty commentary. Fans from cities and countries across the world tagged themselves in posts, creating a truly global viral moment. Backstage, Ozzy reflected on the experience with a smile. I may have lost the fight, he said, but I gained the story of a lifetime, and I hope everyone watching remembers one thing: never be afraid to step up, even if you know the odds aren't in your favor. Chuck, true to form, didn't comment publicly. His quiet demeanor said it all. The battle had been won long before the first proper strike, and mastery doesn't need to announce itself. The arena cleared, but the lessons of that day traveled far beyond its walls. Courage, humility, respect, and mastery became the talk of the town, not just because of the fight itself, but because of how both men handled it. Ozzy's boldness and Chuck's calm created a perfect viral story, entertaining, instructive, and unforgettable. By the end of the day, millions had watched the clips online. Viewers everywhere were sharing, commenting, and debating. The fight had become more than a spectacle. It had become a global story about courage, skill, and the difference between energy and mastery. By the next morning, the clips of the showdown were everywhere. Social media feeds overflowed with the chaos of Ozzy's wild moves, the calm precision of Chuck Norris, and the stunned reactions of the crowd. Tweets, TikToks, Instagram Reels, and YouTube clips were shared millions of times. And the story wasn't just entertaining. It was a lesson people couldn't stop talking about. Memes exploded across platforms. Ozzy flying mid-spin, Chuck standing perfectly still, captions like "lost before the fight began." And courage meets mastery. Fans around the world debated fervently. Some applauded Ozzy's audacity, calling him the embodiment of fearless spirit. Others marveled at Chuck's calm dominance, recognizing that his quiet strength had already decided the outcome long before the first real move. It wasn't just the entertainment value that captured attention. It was the lesson behind the chaos. People saw that courage alone can be inspiring, but skill, control, and mastery ultimately define results. The story transcended platforms. It became a cultural reference for confidence, humility, and respect. News outlets picked up the story with headlines like, Ozzy Osbourne versus Chuck Norris. What we can learn about courage and mastery. The fight that taught millions the value of calm over chaos. Energy isn't enough. How mastery always prevails. Even influencers and motivational speakers joined in, analyzing the showdown from a life lesson perspective. They explained that whether in sports, work, or personal challenges, energy and boldness matter. But they can never replace preparation, skill, and experience. Ozzy embraced the viral fame with humor and humility. In interviews he said, I gave it everything I had. I might have lost before the fight even started. But I wouldn't trade the experience. It's not about winning. It's about daring to step into the arena. Chuck Norris didn't need interviews. His silent presence, his unshakable confidence, and his perfect execution had already spoken volumes. Millions recognized that true mastery doesn't need to prove itself. It simply is. The viral story inspired countless people online. Fans shared stories of times they had tried something bold, only to realize that skill and preparation mattered more than sheer courage. People commented from every corner of the globe, from Tokyo to Toronto, from Lagos to London, connecting over the universal message. If you believe courage is powerful but mastery always wins, type legend in the comments and share your story of a time when preparation or skill made all the difference. We want to feature the best ones.